Jung once wrote that certain souls can sense every vibration in a room, yet have no clear sense of their own pulse. They walk through life like tuning forks, vibrating with others, adjusting, harmonizing, but never hearing the note that belongs only to them. People praise them gentle, intuitive, compassionate, emotionally intelligent. But Jung knew that every gift hides a wound. The empath's wound is simple and devastating, the inability to know where they end and another begins. Most self-help advice tells you to protect your energy, to block negativity, to visualize white light. Jung approached the problem differently. He saw empathy not as energy exchange, but as identity diffusion, a condition where consciousness leaks beyond its own edges. He called the cure individuation, the process of becoming a distinct psychological whole. For empaths, individuation isn't an option. It's survival. Without it, your compassion mutates into compulsion, your insight becomes intrusion, and your kindness turns into exhaustion. Imagine the end of a long day. You sit in silence, yet the air feels crowded. Fragments of other people's moods cling to you, your co-workers' irritation, your friends' anxiety, your parents' silent worry. You feel their residue but can't find your own outline. When you try to locate what's truly yours, there's only static. You are full and hollow at once, flooded with everything and anchored to nothing. Jung would say this isn't emptiness. It's undifferentiated psychic material. You've merged with too many emotional fields, and now your nervous system can't tell who's inside it. Empaths are praised for this absorption because society benefits from it. Families remain peaceful offices, stay functional relationships, feel safe. But Jung saw the danger underneath the compliment. The empath's survival strategy becomes their prison. You learned early that dissolving tension made people love you. You discovered that erasing yourself created harmony. Slowly, your psyche made a contract. If I disappear, they will stay. And because it worked, you called it goodness. That contract is the first map coordinate you must burn. Jung defined individuation as the moment when you stop outsourcing your moral compass to the collective and begin listening to the deep center he called the self. For most people, that's an abstract idea. For empaths, it's an emergency instruction. You can't keep stabilizing everyone else's weather while ignoring the storm inside your own lungs. The first law of psychological survival is containment. You must develop psychic skin, but how Jung didn't want you to harden. He wanted you to differentiate. To him, boundaries weren't walls, but membranes permeable, intelligent, alive. They let meaning in and keep distortion out. Without them, you absorb reality unfiltered until it rewrites you. That's why the empath's exhaustion isn't physical, it's ontological. You're tired of being everything. He saw this pattern over and over. One of his patients, a woman he called I, in his notes was adored for her sensitivity. She mediated family feuds, smoothed workplace chaos, anticipated needs before they were spoken. Everyone described her as light itself. Yet when asked what she wanted, she froze. Her voice trembled as if desire were a foreign language. "I want to want," she whispered, "but I don't know how." Jung realized she had mistaken attunement for identity. She could perceive every emotional frequency except her own. Her therapy wasn't about protection, it was about reclamation. Jung instructed her to record 3 experiences every day, one moment that belonged to her body, one feeling that originated in her, one thought not shaped by anyone else's expectation. At first, she returned empty. Everything she felt had someone's name attached. But slowly something emerged. A hunger for solitude, a forgotten dream of painting a visceral anger she had suppressed for decades. That anger, Jung told her, wasn't sin, it was signal. It was the self-demanding space. He called this moment the return of the repressed center. It's when an empath's psyche, tired of serving as everyone's mirror, begins to reassert its reflection. The challenge is that the empath's mask, the persona, is socially rewarded. Society loves the caretaker who never complains. Families rely on the child who senses everything. Workplaces promote the one who absorbs tension. Your persona is praised precisely because it costs you everything. Jung saw this as a special version of the good person complex. The persona becomes so adaptive that it devours the self. You perform warmth until you burn. He warned that when the persona dominates, the shadow grows teeth. Every yes that violates your truth feeds resentment. Every act of suppression builds a psychic pressure tank. Eventually, the shadow bursts. It can appear as rage illness or quiet disappearance. Jung's advice was not to suppress the anger again, but to integrate it. The healthy man does not torture others, he wrote. It is the tortured who turn into torturers. The empath who denies their anger becomes manipulative in softer ways through guilt, withdrawal, or martyrdom. This is the shadow of compassion, the urge to control through care. You've probably met this version of yourself, the one who gives endlessly, then resents silently. The one who says, "I'm fine," while bleeding spiritually. The one who feels morally superior for suffering. Jung would call this the wounded healer complex. It's the ego's attempt to survive meaninglessness by manufacturing crisis. If your identity depends on being the savior, you unconsciously seek victims. You call it destiny. It's addiction. That addiction creates what Jung named emotional fusion, the blurring of boundaries, until your psyche mistakes others' energy for your own essence. Fusion is the empath's drug of choice. It feels like connection, while it's actually possession. You merge, fix, soothe, heal, and in doing so, disappear. Then, when the high fades, you feel abandoned by those you rescued, not realizing you abandoned yourself first. The first withdrawal symptom is confusion. The second is rage. You'll try to earn your sense of self back through overperformance. You'll analyze everyone else's motives to feel in control. You'll become what Jung described as the shadow hunter, seeing toxicity everywhere except the mirror. Projection becomes your last defense against collapse. You label others as narcissists, manipulators, energy vampires, never seeing that these labels are fragments of your own disowned aggression. The empath who can't integrate anger becomes obsessed with diagnosing it in others. Jung warned that shadow projection is the most dangerous form of empathy. It's not malicious, it's unconscious. You aren't lying about what you perceive, you've simply mistaken internal content for external fact. Modern neuroscience confirms this. During emotional projection, the brain's visual cortex activates as if it's perceiving real stimuli. Your nervous system literally sees your shadow outside you. That's why arguments with such empaths feel unresolvable. They're debating with their own reflection. When you confront them with evidence, they interpret your defense as proof of guilt. This is the empathic paradox. The one who feels most deeply can distort most completely when consciousness fails to separate feeling from fact. The only remedy is awareness. When you feel certain that you've decoded someone else's motive, pause. Ask, what inside me does this remind me of? If the emotion carries disproportionate weight, it's likely your own material surfacing. This practice transforms empathy from absorption to insight. Jung called it active imagination, dialoguing with the image instead of projecting it. You turn the mirror inward and begin to see the architecture of your own psyche. At this stage, many empaths panic. Differentiation feels like betrayal. You've built your worth on being the safe one, the listener, the healer. Who are you if you stop? Jung anticipated this fear. Individuation, he said, often begins with the collapse of the false self. The persona that once earned love starts to crumble. The psyche stages what he called the dark night of the soul, a psychological death, where the identity that saved you becomes the identity you must bury. The empath calls it burnout, but it's rebirth disguised as failure. This is the most dangerous moment, because you'll be tempted to rebuild the old persona quickly. You'll seek another crisis to fix another broken soul, to save another collective cause to merge with. Resist that temptation. You're detoxing from significance addiction. Jung advised his patients to tolerate emptiness until authentic desire appears. Real purpose arrives quietly without needing witnesses. It doesn't drain, it generates. To navigate this emptiness, you must meet the part of you you've exiled, the empathic shadow. It contains everything you've denied to stay good. Your anger, your need for attention, your longing to be seen, your secret superiority complex. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You don't heal by shining brighter. You heal by descending consciously." The empath's descent isn't into evil, it's into honesty. Deep in that honesty, you'll find the second half of compassion, the ability to say no without guilt. That word no is the first breath of your real self. It's how the self announces its existence. Every no aligned with truth becomes a sacrament of integrity. You'll feel grief because each boundary kills an illusion. You'll feel terror because you've equated limits with loneliness. But then something extraordinary happens. The people who only loved your compliance fade, and those who can love your wholeness arrive. The world reorganizes around your authenticity. Empaths often ask, "If I stop absorbing, will I stop caring?" Jung's answer was clear: no. You'll start caring accurately. Empathy without boundaries is sentimentality. Empathy with boundaries is discernment. The first creates dependency. The second creates growth. You become less magnetic to chaos and more magnetic to truth. That's why Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. He wasn't offering comfort. He was warning that authenticity costs everything that isn't real. You might notice strange side effects as you integrate. Dreams where you're cleaning rooms, shedding skins, closing windows that were left open for years. You might feel old grief surface, anger you thought you transcended, sadness that isn't about anyone. Don't interpret this as regression. It's recalibration. The psyche is returning emotional ownership to its rightful place. The borrowed pain is leaving. In this phase, solitude becomes medicine. Not isolation, but solitude, a deliberate silence where no one's frequency overrides yours. Jung saw solitude as the alchemical vessel where the disparate parts of the soul recombine. For the empath, solitude feels unnatural at first, like a limb that fell asleep. You'll crave noise, others' responsibility. Stay. The discomfort is detox. Inside it, you'll begin to feel something unfamiliar: neutrality. Neutrality is not apathy, it's balance. It's the moment you can sense someone's pain without drowning in it. That's the birth of conscious empathy. You'll notice it in small interactions. A friend's crisis doesn't hijack your day. A stranger's sadness touches you but doesn't colonize you. You still feel everything, but the feeling passes through instead of settling in. This is the emergence of what Jung called the transcendent function, the psyche's ability to hold opposites without collapsing. You can be sensitive and strong, open and boundaried, compassionate and sovereign. You stop choosing between heart and spine because you've grown both. This is the beginning of individuation for the empathic soul. It's not enlightenment, it's realism. It's the ability to be with others without vanishing. It's the rediscovery of center after years of orbiting everyone else's gravity. The self you find here is quiet, ordinary, undramatic. It doesn't crave validation because it no longer bargains with pain. It doesn't need to be the light in the room. It's content being a steady flame in the dark. And from that steadiness, true empathy, precise, grounded, and sustainable, finally flows. As the empath begins to reclaim a center, another truth surfaces: the body was never just a container, it was the first boundary you abandoned. Every time you felt someone else's sorrow in your stomach, every time your chest tightened for another's anxiety, you were practicing a form of unconscious prayer. The body became the altar where you sacrificed yourself daily. Jung insisted that psyche and soma are not separate. The unconscious speaks through muscles' breath temperature. Individuation therefore requires physical participation. You cannot think your way back to selfhood. You must feel it through your own nerves. The first practice is what he called emotional sorting. Each morning before touching a phone or speaking a word, sit still for 1 minute and ask, "What here is mine?" Scan from crown to heel. The tightness in your throat, does it belong to you or to the conversation you absorbed yesterday? The restlessness in your limbs, is it your own anticipation or someone else's unfinished story? Label what you find mine, not mine unknown. Return what is not yours with a silent gesture. This simple act re-educates your nervous system to recognize ownership. Over weeks, you will notice that fatigue lessens not because the world grew kinder, but because you stopped carrying its weather. The second practice is boundary rehearsal. Choose phrases that sound natural, not mystical. "I'll think about it." "I don't have the space for that right now." "I care, but I can't fix this." Say them aloud when calm. The mouth must learn them before the crisis arrives. Under stress, the body will default to whatever sentence feels safe. If the only rehearsed sentence is, "Of course I'll help," the body will speak it even while breaking. Give it new options. Boundaries must be muscle memory, not moral theory. Next comes micro-refusal. You will want to reclaim autonomy in one heroic act. Don't. Start small. Decline a minor request. End a call 5 minutes sooner. Allow an awkward silence instead of filling it. Each micro-refusal teaches the psyche that saying no does not trigger exile. Your fear of rejection will not vanish. It will recalibrate. You will begin to learn the difference between guilt and growth. The first says, "I broke a rule." The second whispers, "I grew a spine." Then there is de-recruitment. Empaths stabilize by building coalitions of understanding, telling one friend about another's pain, seeking confirmation that your read is accurate, collecting allies in compassion. It feels noble. It is usually projection maintenance. Promise yourself 30 days without triangulation. If you feel an impulse to share concern, pause. Write what happened in a private log instead. Reality written once is clearer than rumor repeated thrice. When tempted to defend your goodness through explanation, remember Jung's counsel. Whatever is denied inwardly will be lived outwardly. Silence becomes containment. Containment becomes power. Before moments of intensity, practice the archetype check-in. Ask who is driving right now. If you hear the savior, the parent, the healer, thank them. Then ask them to sit beside you. Do not exile them. Displace them from the driver's seat. The archetype will protest, it believes it keeps you alive. But once you show it, the road continues without constant rescue missions, it relaxes. Awareness disarms possession faster than exorcism ever could. At night, complete the cycle with a 3-line ledger. One moment I stayed with myself, one moment I left myself, one thing I will do differently tomorrow. No judgment, only record. Jung believed ritual trains the unconscious. The ledger tells your deeper mind. We are constructing a human, not performing a role. When you live like this for a while, something subtle shifts. The world grows quieter. The psychic static that once felt like intimacy now registers as noise. You begin to feel the difference between empathy and fusion, in the same way a musician feels the difference between harmony and feedback. You can stand beside suffering without becoming it. You can love without editing your existence. The absence of chaos will feel wrong at first. That is withdrawal. You were addicted to intensity. Breathe through it. The craving for crisis fades like any chemical dependency once you stop feeding it stories. The next terrain is the Peko mirror field. Jung observed that every person we are drawn to or repelled by reflects material the conscious mind refuses to own. For empaths, this mirror is merciless because you see more clearly than most. The wounded child you want to rescue, the angry partner you want to soothe, the narcissist you can't stop analyzing, all of them are psychological mirrors showing you parts of yourself you have outsourced. You don't only attract these people, you manufacture the magnetic field that pulls them in. The soul wants wholeness more than comfort, and it will keep summoning teachers disguised as trouble until you integrate the lesson. When someone triggers you, ask 3 questions. 1. What quality in them feels unbearable? 2. Where does that quality live in me, unused or denied? 3. What would change if I expressed it consciously rather than condemning it? This is the alchemy of empathy, turning projection into information. You stop labeling people as toxic and start recognizing patterns as curriculum. The moment you accept the reflection, the magnetism dissolves. You no longer need to replay the same story with new actors. Jung called this reciprocity of healing. When you integrate your projected shadow, the other person's behavior often shifts without discussion. They were carrying your disowned emotion. Once you reclaim it, the energetic contract expires. You don't heal them by fixing, you heal both by owning. True compassion is not absorption, it's awareness that liberates both sides. Eventually, the empath meets the deepest challenge, loving detachment. It is the art of caring fully while remaining free. You begin to notice how often your old self equated responsibility with love. You now let people experience consequences without rushing in to soften them. This feels cruel only to the part of you addicted to rescue. Real compassion includes respect for another's process. Jung called it allowing the other to suffer their destiny. You stop stealing lessons from people under the disguise of help. This maturity births what can only be called psychological sovereignty. The capacity to remain a subject in every encounter. You become an I among yous, not a ghost in everyone else's narrative. From this state, empathy evolves from reflex to art. You feel everything, but now with precision. You choose when to open, when to close, when to listen, when to walk away. Sensitivity turns from liability to language. There will still be relapses, moments when you wake heavy with emotions that aren't yours. Days when an old relationship tugs you back into fusion. The difference is recognition. Awareness cuts the chain faster each time. You begin to sense the warning tremor, a tightening in the chest. a need to fix a sudden guilt that isn't proportional. That is the alarm of absorption. Hear it, name it, breathe, classify. Return. The world around you will respond strangely. Some will miss the version of you that overgave. They will test the new boundary, confuse quiet confidence with coldness. Do not explain. Jung reminded us, the one who looks outside dreams. The one who looks inside awakes. You have awakened. Let those still dreaming adapt to the light. Others, those capable of real connection, will be magnetized by your steadiness. Your calm will teach them what wholeness feels like. Over time, neutrality becomes your new compassion. You stop oscillating between over-involvement and retreat. You can sit with someone's grief without fixing with anger, without absorbing with joy, without envy. You discover that empathy, when integrated, is not emotion at all. It's clarity. It's seeing the exact weight of another's pain without confusing it for your own. That clarity is what Jung called the transcendent function. The capacity to hold opposites without collapse. Eventually, you realize the goal was never to stop being sensitive. It was to become conscious of what your sensitivity serves. In its unconscious form, it served belonging. In its conscious form, it serves truth. You transform from emotional sponge to emotional mirror, reflecting accurately, leaving others' ownership intact. This is the true wounded healer healed. You help without hunger. You listen without losing. You love without erasure. The final understanding arrives quietly. Individuation is not isolation. You are not separating to escape. You are differentiating to connect authentically. Only distinct beings can meet. Only those who own their center can form real unity. Floods destroy bridges. Rivers feed them. The empath who integrates becomes the river, flowing strong, defined. So when the next storm of feelings passes through you, remember this: you are the vessel, not the weather. Let the rain fall. Let the wind howl. The river does not apologize for its banks. It simply carries what it can, releases what it must, and keeps moving toward the sea.